Amanda spent over 2 years convincing Noah and Emma that their grandmother didn't love them anymore. Birthday gifts mysteriously never arrived. Phone calls were secretly blocked, and every canceled visit was blamed on Evelyn. The children slowly stopped hugging their grandmother and eventually refused to answer her calls. Evelyn thought she was losing her grandchildren forever until one ordinary Tuesday morning, the elementary school principal called her by mistake after finding documents that exposed what Amanda had really been telling the children. That single phone call destroyed 2 years of lies and forced Evelyn's son to hear the truth he had refused to believe. My name is Evelyn Carter, and I'm 63 years old. 3 weeks ago, my 10-year-old grandson looked me straight in the eyes outside his elementary school and whispered, "Mom says you stopped loving us because Grandpa died." I've lived through losing my husband of 38 years. I've survived cancer. I've buried both of my parents. But nothing in my life prepared me for hearing those words from a little boy I had rocked to sleep as a baby. He didn't sound angry. He sounded convinced, like he was repeating something he'd heard so many times it had become the truth. My granddaughter Emma stood beside him, clutching her backpack, refusing to look at me. Before I could answer, my daughter-in-law Amanda appeared from the parking lot, wrapped an arm around both children, smiled politely at the teachers watching nearby, and said, "Come on, kids. We don't talk to strangers." Strangers. That single word hit harder than anything else. I stood there frozen while my own grandchildren climbed into her SUV without looking back. What Amanda didn't know was that less than 24 hours later, the principal of that same school would accidentally call my phone instead of hers. That one mistake would uncover 2 years of lies she'd carefully built around my family. But before I tell you about that phone call, you need to understand how I went from being the grandmother who baked birthday cakes, attended every soccer game, and read bedtime stories every Friday night to becoming the woman my grandchildren believed had abandoned them. My son Michael married Amanda 9 years ago. At first, I adored her. She was confident, intelligent, and had a way of making everyone in the room feel important. When Noah was born, she hugged me in the hospital and said, "I couldn't ask for a better grandmother for my children." I believed every word. For years, we spent holidays together, celebrated birthdays, and took family vacations to the mountains every summer. Then my husband, Richard, passed away unexpectedly after a stroke. Losing him broke something inside me. But I kept showing up for Noah and Emma because they were the brightest part of my life. Somewhere during that first year after Richard's death, Amanda changed. At first, it was little things. She'd tell me the kids were too busy for my weekly visits. She'd say Noah had baseball practice or Emma had dance lessons, only for me to later see family photos online taken during the exact same time. Birthday invitations stopped arriving. Weekend sleepovers quietly disappeared. Whenever I asked Michael if everything was all right, he'd smile awkwardly and say Amanda was just trying to create more structure for the kids. I wanted to believe him because mothers don't want to imagine their own sons drifting away. So I waited patiently, convinced things would get better. Instead, they became worse. The hugs disappeared first, then the phone calls. Then one Christmas, the children thanked me for gifts I'd never bought because Amanda had told them Grandma forgot to shop this year. I stared at them in disbelief, realizing someone had been rewriting my place in their hearts one tiny lie at a time. I wish I could tell you I confronted Amanda the moment I realized what was happening. But that's not how family manipulation works. It doesn't arrive all at once. It arrives one canceled visit, one unanswered text, one disappointed child at a time until you begin wondering if maybe you really are the problem. Every Sunday evening, I still baked chocolate. Chip cookies because Noah loved them fresh out of the oven. Every Friday, I still bought Emma's favorite strawberry yogurt before remembering she wasn't coming anymore. My refrigerator slowly became a museum of little traditions that no longer existed. Whenever I asked Michael why the children had stopped calling me, he always had an explanation. "They're busy, Mom. School has been stressful. Amanda's trying to get them into a routine." He never sounded angry. He sounded tired. Looking back, I think he believed he was keeping the peace. What he didn't realize was that every time he stayed silent, Amanda rewrote another chapter of our family's story. Then strange things started happening. Noah stopped thanking me for birthday cards because, according to Amanda, I hadn't sent one. Emma cried during a family barbecue because she believed I'd forgotten her dance recital, even though I'd spent 2 hours sitting in the front row with flowers in my lap after Amanda had texted me the wrong date. I began keeping every receipt, every delivery confirmation, every text message, not because I planned to use them against anyone, but because I was beginning to question my own memory. Was I really forgetting things? Was grief making me unreliable? One afternoon, I drove past their neighborhood on my way home from the grocery store and noticed the bicycle I'd bought Noah for his 10th birthday sitting in a neighbor's yard with someone else's child riding it. Amanda had told me he'd loved the gift. She never mentioned she'd given it away the next day. That night I cried harder than I had at my husband's funeral because Richard had died without choosing to leave me. But my grandchildren were slowly being taught to walk away while I was still alive. 3 days later, I mailed each child a handwritten letter along with photos from every birthday, camping trip, and Christmas we'd ever shared together. I wanted them to remember the grandmother who taught Noah how to fish and helped Emma bake her first apple pie. 2 weeks passed without a response. Then Amanda sent me a single text message that read, "Please stop confusing the children. They need stability, not guilt." I almost apologized until something inside me finally refused to accept blame for love. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday morning while I was watering the flowers Richard had planted before he passed away. My cell phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, assuming it was another robocall. "Mrs. Carter?" a calm woman's voice asked. "This is Principal Linda Brooks from Pine Ridge Elementary. I'm calling about Noah's emergency contact form." I frowned. "I'm sorry. Emergency contact form?" There was a brief silence before she replied, "Yes. Your number is listed as the primary emergency contact for both Noah and Emma, but their mother isn't answering any of the numbers we have on file." My heart skipped a beat. Amanda had told me months earlier that she'd remove me from every school record because I was, in her words, too emotionally unstable after losing Richard. Yet somehow, the school still considered me the first person to call. I answered every question the principal asked, drove to the school within 15 minutes, and had no idea that the folder waiting on her desk contained a piece of paper that would unravel 2 years of carefully constructed lies. I followed Principal Brooks into her office expecting to sign a form or calm 2 frightened children after some playground accident, but the moment she closed the door behind us, she looked at me with the kind of careful expression people wear when they know they're about to change someone's life. She apologized for calling me first, explaining that the school secretary had simply dialed the primary emergency contact listed in the system before realizing Amanda had recently submitted paperwork requesting changes. "We were reviewing the file because some of the information didn't match," she said as she slid a thick student folder across her desk. At first, I didn't understand what she meant. Then she opened the folder and pointed to 2 different emergency contact forms. One had been filled out 3 years earlier with my name listed first, followed by Michael. The second, submitted only 4 months ago, removed me completely. What caught the principal's attention wasn't my missing name. It was the handwritten explanation Amanda had attached to the request. It read, "Please remove the children's grandmother immediately. She has become emotionally unstable since her husband's death and has repeatedly attempted to manipulate the children against their parents." My hands went numb. I had never received a single complaint from the school. I had never caused a scene, never argued with Amanda in public, never once tried to involve Noah or Emma in adult disagreements. Yet there it was, in black ink, presented as if it were an established fact. Principal Brooks quietly admitted that several teachers had been confused because the children often spoke warmly about me at school. But during the last year, Noah had started telling counselors that Grandma didn't want to see them anymore because she blamed them for Grandpa's death. I couldn't even breathe. He actually believes that?" I whispered. The principal nodded sadly. Last month, he wrote an essay called "The People Who Leave Us." He wrote that his grandfather died, and then his grandmother stopped loving him because looking at him reminded her of losing her husband. Tears rolled down my face before I even realized I was crying. Richard had adored those children. His greatest fear before he died was that they wouldn't remember him. Never, not once, had I blamed them for anything. Principal Brooks reached into another folder and handed me photocopies of Noah's essay and a drawing Emma had made during a counseling activity. In the picture, Amanda stood holding both children while I was drawn outside the house behind a closed gate. Above my head, Emma had written, "Grandma doesn't come anymore because she doesn't like us now." Every lie Amanda had whispered at home had become part of my grandchildren's reality. Then the principal said something that made everything click into place. "Mrs. Carter? Yesterday Noah got into a fight with another student because the boy said, 'Grandmothers don't stop loving their grandchildren.' Noah insisted they do because his mother told him yours chose to leave." My heart shattered. At that exact moment, the office door opened and Michael walked in, looking confused after being called away from work. He saw the tears on my face, the documents spread across the desk, and then picked up Noah's essay without saying a word. I watched him read every sentence. His face slowly lost all color. When he reached the handwritten note, Amanda had submitted to remove me from the emergency contacts. His hands began to shake. He looked at Principal Brooks and quietly asked, "Did my mother ever do anything here that justified this?" The principal answered without hesitation, "No, in fact, every interaction we've had with Mrs. Carter has been respectful and appropriate. That's why these documents concerned us." Michael closed the folder, looked at me for what felt like the first time in years, and whispered 3 words I'd been waiting to hear for almost 2 years. "Mom, I'm sorry." Michael drove straight home that afternoon without calling Amanda first, something he admitted later he'd never done during their entire marriage. He wanted to see her reaction before she had time to prepare an explanation. When he walked through the front door, Amanda was sitting at the kitchen island helping Emma with homework while Noah played in the living room. She smiled as if nothing had happened. "How was work?" she asked. Michael quietly placed Noah's essay, Emma's drawing, and the school's emergency contact forms on the counter between them. "I was at Pine Ridge Elementary today," he said. Amanda's smile disappeared almost instantly. She picked up the papers, glanced at them for only a second, and then tried the same calm voice that had fooled everyone for years. "Michael, I can explain." But for the first time in their marriage, he didn't let her control the conversation. "No," he said softly. "You've been explaining for 2 years. Today I'd like you to answer." She insisted she'd only been protecting the children because I was grieving too much after Richard died. Then she claimed the school misunderstood her paperwork. When those excuses failed, she blamed me, saying I'd always wanted to replace her as the children's mother. Michael listened without interrupting until she finally stopped talking. Then he asked one simple question. "Did my mother ever tell Noah she stopped loving him?" Amanda looked away. "No." "Did she ever tell Emma she blamed them for Grandpa's death?" Another silence. "No." "Then who did?" Amanda never answered because she didn't have an answer that wasn't the truth. That evening, Michael packed a small suitcase, took Noah and Emma to my house, and told them they were spending the weekend with Grandma. At first, the children acted nervous, almost like they were visiting a stranger. Then Noah noticed the old fishing pole Grandpa Richard had given him still hanging in my garage exactly where he'd left it. Emma found every birthday card she'd ever made me, carefully stored in a memory box, beside dozens of family photographs. Nothing had been thrown away. Nothing had been forgotten. That night after dinner, Noah quietly asked me, "Grandma, if you still loved us, why didn't you come see us?" I swallowed the lump in my throat and answered as honestly as I could. "Sweetheart, I tried. More times than you could ever imagine." Michael sat there listening as I showed them unopened birthday gifts that had been returned to me, letters I'd written that had never reached them, and photographs from soccer games and dance recitals where I'd quietly sat in the audience without them ever knowing I was there because Amanda had told teachers not to let me speak to the children. Emma started crying first. Noah hugged me so tightly I thought my heart might finally heal. 2 months later, Michael filed for divorce. He told the judge the greatest betrayal in his marriage wasn't money or infidelity. It was discovering that someone he trusted had deliberately poisoned his children's relationship with the grandmother who had loved them unconditionally since the day they were born. Amanda was granted shared custody, but the court ordered family counseling after reviewing statements from the school counselor and principal. Today, nearly 18 months later, every Friday night Noah still asks if we can go fishing the way Grandpa Richard taught us, and Emma still helps me bake cookies before every family movie night. Sometimes they ask why adults tell lies, and I always give them the same answer. Because the truth takes patience, but lies only take a moment. Michael apologized to me more times than I can count, but I stopped needing apologies the day I watched my grandchildren run across my front yard yelling, "Grandma," without a single doubt in their hearts. Losing 2 years with them will always hurt. But I learned something my husband used to tell me long before any of this happened. Love doesn't disappear just because someone lies about it.